Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to 2020.
21.
Wow.
Hey, Alexie, don't go back. Don't go back.
Alexie, you're already messing up.
I already screwed up. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, 2021.
Yeah.
And
So
a
this
new
is-
intro.
In a new intro for the new year.
What'd you think,
That
Adam?
we-
Is this better?
It is better than the one before. But I
That
also
doesn't mean
don't know
you
if that's
liked it,
true.
don't worry.
I
Faint
think I
praise.
just taught myself to hate the other one so much.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm Alexie. That's John.
I'm John.
My
Hi.
best friend, Maggie.
Hi, I don't know
Maggie.
anything about film, but I'm here to just be a layman's perspective.
Yeah.
You now have the next 40 minutes. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, it's all on, it's all on you.
No, that's
Did
okay.
you introduce
No,
Adam, Alexie? She left
Huh?
you.
I
Did
did
you
say
introduce-
Adam. I said he
Oh, you did?
exists. Everyone knows he
Hey.
exists. He won't let anyone forget.
Everyone knows who Adam is.
God, what a
Oh,
horrible
man.
dystopia.
I am using Maggie's apartment today because I don't have Wi-Fi yet. That's why it looks so nice.
Oh,
because you moved.
But anyway,
Because you moved.
I did move. I did, and there's no
One of the
Wi-Fi.
most stressful things that one of the most stressful things you can do, right?
It is. It is. And you know what? I had an allergic reaction to something, and my fingertips are all flat now, and I can't use Touch ID. So that's a fun fact if you've ever heard one. I can't get into my devices that need Touch ID. So there you go.
Wow. You know, it's what are we, like less than a minute in, already we learned something.
You learned something new.
It's pretty extraordinary, really. Hey, by the way, before I forget, I got the emails and the holiday cards from everybody, and I really appreciate it. I was quite touched, really. So thank you all for reaching out and sending good wishes and all that. I send them right back to you, and thank you for participating because Alexie, Adam, and I have a great time, but we need you, and we appreciate you showing up. So thanks for the cards, and thanks for showing up.
Yeah. And thank you
I'm
too.
gonna cry.
The violins.
Thank
Where
you,
are the
Adam.
violins? Where? Huh?
Adam, didn't you get one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks,
Adam got
everybody.
one
who
card.
gave me a card.
Adam
That
got-
was great.
wanna
Adam
say
got a
thank you.
card. Didn't you
I
get a
got one as
card?
well.
Screw
A virtual
everyone.
card. It was very sweet. I just think that it's amazing that we've helped people, if anything, write more this year in a year where a lot of people haven't. If we were an excuse to get people to talk about their writing and share it and do more, that's like a positive thing in the world. So I feel just thrilled to been a part of that.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
It's true. It's
What
true.
week is this, Alexie? Not to put you on the spot. Do you have any idea?
What week?
Well, how many
Oh,
coffee
38.
classes? 38? Wow.
like one?
Yeah, it was like week 1 of 2021.
One, but 38 coffee classes.
We
Great.
improve as we go.
All right.
Oh man. And Juno,
Juno.
my favorite movie.
Wait.
That's not
I
true.
think I've heard that before.
Everyone assumes that I because I really like Winter. I have favorites. That's why you can never pick
To be
one.
fair, Alexie, you've introduced 3 separate movies as this is my favorite movie. Like this
Yeah,
is the one.
To definitively say that is like a statement every time you do it.
Hey.
Hey, who invited her? So Juno is one of your favorites. And by the way, what was the third one, Adam? Because we know it's Winter's Bone.
There was Winter's Bone, Short Term 12, and Juno.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a theme here. There's a theme.
Deny it.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, young white woman in jeopardy. Learns something. Coming of age story.
Oh man. Okay.
Sorry,
Well,
I'm coming out. I'm sorry. They're all
Adam,
great
what are
movies.
your
I love them.
three?
there.
All
And
great.
Adam, what
I
are your
love this
three?
film.
I feel like actually, never mind. I don't feel like I can ask Adam that because I feel like you've intentionally probably selected 3 that you say are your favorite to avoid psychoanalysis.
That's actually not true because here's my problem. I just like so much shit like I like so many different things. I'm just a fan. So I'm less critical than you. I'm a way easier fan. And that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's also not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. I'm very easy to win over.
That was manslaughter. And Adam, the only question I have with that comment
I'm emotionally shallow.
Is that that you're less critical. When you say
yeah, I would say like, let me put it this way, John. I am much easier to please. The bar is lower. Alexie has like a higher bar of excellence. She like has standards. I don't have.
A higher bar is a good way to do it. A higher bar.
Okay, and I'm just now I have to know since we're being so starting off the year so introspectively. Where am I? I'm not very. Although Alexie always puts up that he likes it thing, but that's a joke. I know.
John is actually. I think you're less critical than Alexie.
There. Okay. So Alexie's the most critical. That's nice. I love that.
No, I wouldn't say that though. Like,
is one of my
Alexie also called Hunt.
You didn't say it was your favorite. You said it was one of your favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna have no room to deny anything very soon.
I'm sorry.
So Juno is, I agree, it's not my favorite film, but Lawrence of Arabia would be my favorite film.
Oh,
but,
yeah, that is your favorite.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite?
Whiteman
It's a film I can just keep watching. I love everything about Lawrence of Arabia.
I watched a documentary about it once, and it totally changed how I view it. Like there's somebody did like the economics of if it was made today, it would cost over like $1 billion. Like the manpower that it took, how much cheap labor was required to make that film at the budget they made.
And Lean was out for years.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, here's a good thing. You like everything except when you read screenplays.
But here's the problem. But there's a reason for this. I don't enjoy reading screenplays. I like watching movies. Screenplays are always like a chore. So I'm going to be in a more critical mood because I'm like, it's like in between a novel and a movie. It's like got neither, it's the worst of both worlds, you know?
The worst of both worlds. Okay.
You know what I'm trying? Sorry.
That makes sense. No. So Alexie,
yes.
Your favorite film, Juno.
Yes. And this time it's actually, Maggie's going to leave me while I'm soloed. I have nothing to contribute.
So you're going to break.
What is her favorite movie?
Wait, Maggie, what's your favorite movie? You were just asked a question.
Oh, let me get back to you on that.
She'll come back.
All right, I'm curious, genuinely.
Adam's genuinely curious. He wasn't being sarcastic.
He's also curious by nature.
Genuinely will get it.
Okay. So I am.
So you're breaking it.
I am breaking it. And unfortunately, I haven't typed it up yet. I have it on my phone. So I'm going to have to post it after. It's been crazy with this move. I have not had internet. No. I've basically been in the boonies despite being only a few blocks from where I was before. That's how I feel. Okay.
But you now have a back garden, which is exciting.
Wow.
I have a back garden and I have a room that's going to be my office. And I have a room that's going to be where Carl puts all of his crap. Wow.
Wait. I love that. It's like your office
my
and
office.
where he puts his shit.
Crap. Yeah.
Like that's such, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Look. It's true. Tracy's
and yes, I'm in my bedroom right now. Usually I'm in my office or the place where I put all my shit.
Wall black? Is your wall black?
This is dark blue.
It looks. It's just such a moody choice.
Yeah, I think it looks cool. It's cool.
It's cool. It's a cool guy wall. Yes. All right. Juno. I will do this. All right. So. Juno. All right. I guess to amend it, it was not necessarily my favorite. It's in my top 5, but it was the screenplay that made me want to write screenplays. It was the first screenplay I ever read. I was in like high school and my best friend at the time was like the one weird artsy theater downtown was showing Juno. And I was like, what is it? And she was like, it's like this independent film about a girl who gets pregnant in high school. And I was like, what? I'd never seen anything like it and I did not want to go. But we ended up watching it together and I freaking loved it. And it was like nothing else I'd ever seen before. I think it was my first like independent movie. And then afterwards I Googled the screenplay and that was the first time I'd ever done it. And I remembered reading it and just being absolutely amazed by it. And so it will always hold a place in my heart for that reason. let's see. Okay, so getting into the breakdown. This movie, real quick, I wanted to go ahead and say something about this. As you know, that it's news that the lead actor of this film, Elliot Page, came out recently. And just if you want your we want to be as respectful as possible. So if you want your comments on the screen, we ask that if you're referring to the actor, you use his name and he, him. And if you're referring to the character, Juno, that's still she, her, everything. So anyway, just wanted to clarify that real quick, just so we can get everyone's comments on the screen and also be good about it. Okay, anyway. So Juno is a 16-year-old girl in Minnesota. And when the film opens up, she is, well, excluding the credit scene, she's taking pregnancy tests and finds out that she is pregnant. And normally I feel like that would be the inciting incident of a film like this. But in this film, the way it's structured, it's just her normal world. Her normal world is that she is a 16-year-old girl who is pregnant. And she is quirky and funny, and there's this like great rhythm to all the dialogue when she's bantering with the guy who, with Rainn Wilson, and she finds out that she's pregnant, and that's her situation. Now she has to figure out how to deal with it. She goes home and calls her best friend Leah and reveals to Leah that she's pregnant, and they discuss a plan of how she's going to handle it. And her initial thought is that she's going to go to Women Now, where they help women now get an abortion. So right off the bat, we know she's pregnant, she's planning to get an abortion. She goes to the abortion clinic, and once she gets there, she runs into one of her classmates who is protesting, and she gets inside, and it just makes her really uncomfortable. And her inciting incident is that she is trying to get an abortion and realizes that she can't do it. So she's going to stay pregnant. And then her break into Act 1, I believe, is that she decides that she is going to give the baby up for adoption. So now she has the objective of getting her baby to a cool family, to a good family, and yeah, having the baby, giving it to a cool family is her objective. And now her new world is that she's a 16-year-old who is pregnant, and she's going to go through with it. She's going to, not be able to hide it. And that's, yeah. Oh, also something interesting about this film is that it's broken into seasons. So it's structured into 4 seasons where you can track her progress in the pregnancy. So she and her best friend Leah look for adoptive parents in the Penny Saver. And this is really where we first see her flaw coming through, which I believe is that she's judgmental. She has really high standards for everyone and judges everyone else. And that poses to be a challenge for her as she's trying to find the right family for her baby. And just, you also see it just with everyone, like later when has the voiceover about Bleeker's mom, just always, she's pretty judgmental. And her inner need is to accept people and to accept herself, is the way I see it. Okay, so then she and Leah look for parents in the Penny Saver. They find an ad for Vanessa and Mark Loring, who seem perfect. It's not quite what she wanted. They're not quite as cool and edgy as she wanted, but they seem like the perfect family for her baby. So this is who she thinks she's going to give it to. And now she has to tell her parents, her dad, her stepmom, that she's pregnant. That's a big obstacle. So she and Leah go together, and she uses Leah as a buffer to tell her parents. And, I think that the parents are sort of a duo mentor to her. At the end of the day, I think if you had to pick one, it would be the dad, just because of how he shows up at the end. But they're both really mentor characters to her. They are obviously shocked that their 16-year-old kid is pregnant and not exactly thrilled about it. But they, for the most part, take it in stride and are going to be on her side and help her get through this. And they accept her decision to adopt out the baby to this family. So Juno and her dad go meet Vanessa and Mark Loring, the potential adoptive family. And I have said this 20,000 times, so I'm sorry, but the description in the script of Vanessa, I think, is one of the coolest things. So if you check that out, that's great. It's very, very, it's exactly what you see on screen. She's very Banana Republic is the description. And I feel like it just sums up her character perfectly. And Juno and Vanessa do not see eye to eye, but I mean, they still like each other because they both are offering something. But Juno walks in and she's super judgy of the space. She's like, I'm allergic to fine furnishings. And she goes upstairs and starts using all their perfume. And then she bonds with the husband, Mark, who is a cool guy. He plays guitar, and he had this whole other life that he wanted for himself, and he and Juno bond a lot. And Vanessa is not, she's, correctly wary about it. But where I had the midpoint was hard to define, but I feel like the midpoint was when she goes ahead and she commits to Vanessa and Mark as the parents. She decides that they're going to be the ones who are going to take the baby, because she thinks that they're the perfect family, which is playing into her flaw almost, that she's really judgmental. So in the meantime, we move into the next season. Juno's losing touch with Bleecker. She tells him to go date Katrina DeVort and that they were never together. She's kind of dismissive and rude to him. She goes to get an ultrasound to check on the progress of the baby. And there's an amazing scene between the stepmom and the ultrasound technician where the stepmom defends Juno. Fantastic dialogue, fantastic scene. And Leah's there. Leah keeps showing up as a great ally throughout the whole film. Then Juno makes a decision that she's going to go over to the Loring's house unannounced and bring the ultrasound photo. And it turns out Mark's there alone, but she doesn't care. She's going to hang out with them. They're hanging out alone. She doesn't think anything's weird, but but you can kind of get vibes that it's just not, it's a little bit too close. But she's not necessarily picking up on that. And her stepmom warns her after that, like, you can't do that sort of a thing. And Juno is really dismissive. For someone who's super judgy, she can't handle judgment well, which I think or she can't handle criticism well, which I think is another way that her flaw comes into play. So then later on, and I think it's a different season even, she finds out that Bleecker, after all, did go to prom with Katrina DeVort, who is the one that she recommended, but she's really, really offended by this and ends up having this big fight with Bleecker where he tells her that he was in love with her, and she's just pissed and has completely dismissed him. Completely dismissed him. So then she's feeling upset about Bleecker, so she goes over to hang out with Mark, and now it's really weird. And now it's clear that Mark is definitely coming on to her, and he ends up telling her that he's going to leave his wife, which I have as the ultimate test. The ultimate test is Mark tells her that he's going to leave Vanessa, and also tells her, like, what did you think was happening here? As in, like, implying that he believed that there was some sort of a attraction between them that Juno wasn't picking up on or wasn't clued into or didn't realize was serious. And Juno freaks out because in her mind, this baby needs the perfect family. And if they're divorced, then that's not going to be the perfect family anymore. So the whole thing keeps boiling over to the point where Juno goes upstairs and Vanessa's there. And then Juno is caught in the middle of this incredibly awkward moment between Vanessa and Mark, where Mark tells Vanessa that he's not ready to be a father. And Juno leaves and has an emotional breakdown on the side of the road. This is her all is lost moment at the very beginning of Act 3. She no longer has a place for the baby to stay. She doesn't think. She's not really close. She just had a big fight with Bleecker. Everything sucks. Then she goes home and her dad's there, and she ends up talking to her dad about love and if it's even possible for two people to stay in love. And he is great and tells her that she's gonna find somebody who thinks she's perfect even when she's not, is my synopsis. And that inspires her to write a note. We don't see what it is, but we see that she leaves it for Vanessa, and she goes to the track and meets up and talks to Bleecker, and she confesses that she loves him, and they kiss on the track. And this is her this is when she's resolving her flaw. She's not being so judgmental anymore. So then we have her all or nothing. She's going into labor. The Thundercats are a go. She rushes to the hospital and has the baby. That's also what I have as the final fight. And as you know, at the very beginning of the final fight, there tends to be something that feels like a catastrophic failure. And so Juno has decided ahead of time that she didn't want to see the baby. And so in that moment, she's feeling like emotional. Then there's what she did with Bleecker, where she let him stay. She didn't want to tell Bleecker, so he would have to come support her. He comes running back, and they sit together and are in love, and it's really sweet. And we see that it's a good moment, an unexpected success. Vanessa is super happy and gets to be with her baby boy. And in the resolution, a different season later, we see that Juno is happy and she is with Bleecker. We see the note that she left for Vanessa, which is, now I'm blinking on the actual word of the note. Basically, I'm still in if you're in. If you're in, I'm still in, something like that. And then the movie ends on them singing a happy little song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job. And Alexie, great job. Great job.
Thank you.
I think I've only seen this film maybe once, or maybe only once before, and loved it. And I've got some questions. I've got some differences with the breakdown.
Oh no.
Oh yes. And I think I love it when we do this because it hopefully offers up debate.
Yeah.
I've got just a couple things. By the way, I think the script is really remarkable. I think there's some things that they're doing here which are just outstanding. Leah, I had perhaps, and I don't know, but I had Leah as a mentor because you love him. She says early in Act 1, she says regarding Bleecker, you love him. And I had, I don't know if I'm right, just I had that that Juno's flaw was that she was so cynical that she didn't accept the love that she has. So let me just real quickly play through that. So by the way they use Leah and is really magnificent. The friends and I think it's Brenda's the stepmother. The way that she plays is really great. I played with the idea that perhaps when they meet Mark and Vanessa, that's the inciting incident because now they've got somebody to give the baby to, and now we have a very clear objective is to have the baby and give it to them. One of the things they do remarkably well is the writer does, I should say, is the Mark-Juno relationship. When she goes upstairs to the restroom and comes back and sees the guitar and they bond. That has to happen in that scene. It does happen in that scene. He's going to be a friend. By the way, he's going to change as much as she does in the course of the film. I have a question. It may be a male-female point of view issue. I agree that the scene on page 66 when Mark and Juno when they dance is really creepy and could go really, really wrong. Part of what saves it is it can't go too wrong because she's pregnant. And for me, the midpoint is when he says, "I'm leaving Vanessa." Her objective is to give the baby to this family, and now she cannot give it to a family because the family's collapsed. And that's her midpoint. That's when she pulls off the side of the road and she's crying and she's going, "Oh my God, now I cannot meet my objective because my family's no longer together." So I played that as the midpoint. I think that's about. Oh, and then I think the resolution is when she tells Bleecker, and I love you. She finally recognizes, and the father, you're right, that scene with the father is brilliant. When she says, I need to know, can two people stay together?
Yeah.
And he says they can, and she goes to find Bleecker and to say, here's the deal. I love you. I now accept that. I've got one last thing.
I think he's the mentor, though, right?
Yes.
That's why he's the mentor.
I had Lee as the mentor. It's the father's. I mean, that scene makes him the mentor because he gives her the advice that she has to have. The last thing I'll say, I have a question about the tone of the film, and that is it hyperrealism? Because, and that's not a flaw. It's just it goes back. It's what you see a lot of with Sorkin. She's way too damn smart for a 16-year-old child, girl, boy, whatever. She's too smart, and she's a lot of fun to watch, as Sorkin characters are, because they're faster, funnier, and brighter than anybody I should say I know. But is it hyperrealism?
I think it's hyperrealism in the same way Wes Anderson is. She reminds me a lot of Max Fisher.
Yeah, like
a young person who's everything about them defies their environment, and it's a little like you're like Max Fisher is too ambitious and together in that environment, and like they play up that in the script, and the language, the very language they use is about like it's about sort of like a cartoon almost.
Yeah, and that's something that we should talk about in podcasts sometime, because in podcasts we should talk about that distinction, because.
But that's part of what makes it great. That like that's part of what makes it great. Like too,
absolutely.
To lean into that tone and that.
She certainly knows how to write this tone. You know, it's one of those films that when it starts off and you go, "Wow, are you going to be able to maintain that pace?" And she does. Anyway, Alexie, I don't know. Did you? Those my midpoint was a little different than yours. I don't know.
No, I think that was one of the things where the film is so tight. It's so short. It feels like when you actually start like listing out all the events of what happens, it's pretty simple. Like, I mean, if you were, I mean, it seemed easy in retrospect, but I'm sure it was not. But it's all very, very straightforward. It's like she just like figures out she's pregnant. She tells her friend. She tells her parents. She goes to the get an ultrasound. It's very straightforward, and that I was struggling the most with the midpoint because I feel like it's supposed to be a big setback.
What did you write as the midpoint again, Alexie?
And that's why. Okay, for a second, my internet cut out.
Alexie, what was the moment you put as the midpoint again?
I had it be that it was when she locked in on Vanessa and Mark as the parents, just because
that's what I thought.
Something. But it also is just the main reason why I don't necessarily think that it was. I was trying to decide between those two moments, the one that you named, John, and that one. And the main reason why I chose the one that I chose was because I felt the other one was too late, and that it fit timing wise with the ultimate test. But that was the only reason. I feel like it accomplishes the same thing as what a good midpoint would do.
And also, I would categorize the other scene not as a midpoint because it forces her to change, and that feels like an Act 3 thing.
Okay.
Like it's a catalyst of like, okay, we're going along, and also it kind of resolves the objective in a way, right? Like she found the family, and oh shit, that's all gone to that's all compromised now.
Right.
And that's usually at the end of Act 2. And it's late. So, but you know, like you guys said, it's so tight. There's and also logical. Like you could tell that this is the simplest way to tell this story.
Yes.
And also the best way, which is like that's what makes it great. There's not a scene in here in this movie you could take away. And there's not a scene I would personally add. I think it's fantastic. And I love the fact that on page 1, she uses the word wizard to describe something. Like you get a sense of who this person is.
Oh yeah.
On page 1, you get a sense of their cynicism. You get a sense of their sense of humor. You get a sense of like the fact that Bleecker is completely a different human being in every way. Like there's so much contrast in like a Juno's voice and belief with the other characters, and like that's achieved so early. Like that's a feat of like great writing and sense of character. I liked it.
I by the way, you know, one of the reasons it's so successful is that man, I defy anybody to watch this film and not feel something for her, you know, for Juno. I mean, you care about her so deeply. Yeah.
You like it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite films to answer your question. And it is directly because of the length. So I'm a person with a very short attention span also. So a film that is an hour and a half that also like hits the heart and gets all the points across, and like it checks all of my boxes.
Yeah.
And it has Elliot Page, who I have like very strong emotional connection to.
For sure.
What it is.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah. I think if you're starting out as a writer, you should aim for a 90-minute movie. For the reason of it's very hard to get somebody to try something that's even a minute longer than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and as we've said now, you know, several times, it's such a tight script. Everything I'm parodying Adam now, but yeah, everything happens. Everything's in place. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but the way that Mark is used is so fantastic. MacGuffin.
H says MacGuff. Is that an obvious reference to Juno being a human MacGuffin?
I hadn't thought of that. Me.
What a good name. Juno MacGuff. Wow.
Juno MacGuff.
It's like a character from Peanuts. You know, like that's also kind of a vibe of the film. There was like a whole blood of films in like the mid 2000s that were like trying to do like quirky, and this was one of the ones that actually did it with like about being about real things. Like there was that horrible film I Heart Huckabees, all of these like Americana, like slice of life, but aren't we sort of quaint and interesting? Basically ripping off Wes Anderson, but without actually making the film about anything. And this was like one of the few ones that like totally went for that marketing path, but like actually was about something substantial and real and human.
Was anyone else kind of not able to stand Juno as a person? That's a great question. She's grating, isn't she?
I think that she is. Martine saw my face. He said, "Sorry, Alexie." No, she is 16.
Yeah,
she's 16, and I think we would all like. That's a big thing. I think she's very 16 through and through. She's super immature.
I would rather interface with a dumb 16-year-old than a smart one. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, but you all say that after you have children and your child's 16. I mean, I'm maybe the only person in the room who has had two 16-year-old daughters, and it is a demanding experience. It is of all the jobs you have to do, it is perhaps the most demanding. It is the most demanding because man, they keep you on your toes.
sister stay with me for a summer. So I feel like, and I was her boss at her internship. So I feel like I can slightly relate. And 16 is a time.
My wife reminded me just last night, I think, our eldest daughter, who, when she was about 7 years old, she wanted, my wife said to her, Madeline, what do you want? And she says, I want to be an adult. And that's, that's what she wanted to be, and she's there now, but she was formidable, huh?
She's living her dream.
Can I tell you one quick, I'm sorry, but one quick, we were flying somewhere. We were living in LA, we were flying to New York, and she, maybe 4th grade, I don't know. And she said, if the plane's not full, I don't want to sit with you guys. And we're like, oh, fuck, Madeline. Okay, fine. And, so sure enough, it wasn't. And there was a seat back, further back in the plane. And so she goes back there and she's sitting and she gets out. She's precocious. I mean, maybe she's Juno. And she gets out her book and she's reading her book. And so flight's been up for a while. And I think I'll go back and check on her and I'll, as if I'm going to the restroom. And so I'm walking down the aisle and she's got a book and she looks up at me and she goes, and I'm like, wow, really? Really? She blew me off, and I walked right on by, and like she was like, I don't need anybody. Yeah.
But John, just to look at it from her point of view, imagine having you as a father.
I know, terrible. And thank you. What a sweet, wonderful. Happy New Year. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent.
Here's a quick question. I think I know this. Jason said, has Diablo Cody ever gone into how much of her is in Juno?
Oh God, you got to think a lot, right?
She was dating a guy that ate Tic Tacs. I know that, and I know that her best friend was a cheerleader, and that a lot of it was very, very true. I don't know if the pregnancy was true. I feel like that would have been included before the Tic Tac thing in my little fun facts I read. But
my intuition is that the details, the small things that are so specific.
The hamburger phone was real.
And that's what makes all of this so real, is that she knew, Adam's right, she knew the details, and that's what just pushes this to life.
Well, something I think it's a myth that you can write something that's not autobiographical in some capacity. Like even a biology textbook is autobiographical in some capacity because you cannot ignore your viewpoint and your biases and your interpretation of reality. Everything that a human being creates is fundamentally comes from their imagination and ability to observe the world. So whether or not there's like a surface level similarity, like in terms of Diablo Cody had a teenage pregnancy. I have no idea if that's the case. It's the fact that those little details and Diablo Cody's ability to imagine what it would have been like and what that character would go through, that is what is important. So I think it doesn't even matter. As a great writer is able to go deep.
Yeah. And again, I'm sorry to keep bringing up podcasts, but we're starting to do those. And I've been thinking about podcasts and Adam, talking about character. And if you're not Diablo Cody and Diablo Cody and you don't have these experience, can you write the script? And writing a bio for all of your characters, it means that you must really immerse yourself in the character and you must know every little detail. The hamburger phone, you've got to talk to people, do research, find those things, because that's what brings it all to life.
Part of one of the best, everyone's heard write what you know. I think that's true to an extent. But for many, many things, you can come to know anything. You can come to know whatever you want through the right amount of research and talking to people. But the more nuanced that experience gets, and the further it is from your experience, the more research it's going to take. Especially if you're writing about a completely different cultural experience, you're going to need to do a lot of talking to people and digging and research in order to write that. But you can come to know anything, but you should only write what you know. Don't write something you don't know. Go teach yourself that. So learn.
I think a more
You have to
useful,
learn.
I think a more useful axiom is to write what is true based on what you observe and empathize with. Like, I'm a big believer in telling young writers, like, exercise radical empathy, like extend that sense of observation of outside of yourself. Like, what would these characters really think and believe? How would they really make choices? And that's not something that, like, if it's a person who's different, had a different lived experience than you, that's not like something you can pluck out of the top of your head. That's something you need to exercise empathy and, like, those conversations and that awareness and that extension of questioning, curiosity. Like, what is true?
Yeah.
Even if that's a flawed idea.
And a very practical way, you're sticking with this, write what you know, in a very practical way, for screenwriters, it's not possible. So what's going to happen to you is you're going to get assignments. I hope, you know, you're going to get assignments and they're going to go say, write this movie about this character. They're not going to say, Adam, we want you to write a movie about Adam. That may happen. I think it's unlikely, but who knows?
Unlikely.
You're still interesting. Maybe it will happen. But generally speaking, you take assignments or you write a TV series or you whatever, you know, you go into worlds you don't know, which, by the way, is a tremendous amount of fun to go. It's like being a journalist. You have to think as a journalist. You go, okay, I'm gonna jump into this world and learn as much about it as possible.
You guys want to know a fun fact? I'm reading this fantastic book called Sapiens, and it's about, like, early humanity and, like, how like human consciousness and, like, our biology is, like, made us who we are today based on, like, that switch that happened 70,000 years ago. And one of the catalysts for human intelligence is our ability to believe in things that don't exist. Like, for example, abstractions, like nations, countries, currency, like our ability to have a shared delusion and believe in things that aren't real is what has enabled us to succeed and become apex predators. And I think there's something to that in writing. Like, how can you come to believe something that isn't real? How can you, like, extend your imagination? I don't know. I'm just going on a tangent.
That sounds fascinating. Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that. Here's something that implies Marlena. Sorry, if you tell me how to spell it, I'll get it right next time. Even if you can write something, is it another important question? Perhaps more important, should you? What are things that, like, and I think that particularly comes into play with cultural experiences. And a big one right now is talking about race. And should people be writing characters, like, especially should white writers be writing characters, protagonists of color, particularly when the story is connected to an experience specific to that background? And, you know, and then even if you can do it, should you take that, I guess, that writing job from someone who could relate to it more personally? Like, I just fumbled that really big, but it's
you made sense. It's a very provocative. I mean, by the way, are you saying, Alexie, that if a studio says, I want you to write a character, a Black character story, should you say, no, I shouldn't? I mean, God, who would ever, I mean, you've got more ethics than I think. You know,
but it wouldn't be framed that way, I don't think. Like, I think studios now have enough sense now to not approach you for that story.
That's right.
But if, like, I think you hit the nail on the head, Alexie. If it's about a lived experience, and you should find the writer who at least has some, like, insight onto, like, authenticity of that experience, because otherwise, you know, like, it won't be as good. You know, he wants things to be good. Like, get people who can make the thing better. Get the best person for the job. I feel like it's up to the studio, not the writer. If it's an assignment.
And also, you do get better or worse. You do get pigeonholed by the studio.
What was that, Alexie?
What?
You're talking about Green Book.
I just, when you're having this conversation, I'm thinking about Green Book, which was, like, the criticism of it when it was in theaters was very much that it was like a white savior story, generally written, and, like, also in other circles was lauded as some, like, race, like, I don't know, conversation or, you know, film about race. And then it won Best Picture or something, and a group of white men got up to the stage to, like, it was just
Farrelly.
like,
the Farrelly brothers, yeah. I mean, but don't get me started on Green Book, because it's just, I mean, the fact that won an Oscar is, you know, I could go on for an hour.
Oh, good.
Just a
Glad you did that.
big mistake. Yeah, it's just a big. It was just a big mistake. I mean, you knew that movie. I am still. You knew that movie. You knew the end of that movie before the movie. 10 minutes in. I mean, it's just terrible.
I mean, that movie's been made 1,000 times already.
Yeah, I mean,
all the reasons.
God, it was just.
But I feel like, from the point of view of like, they should have picked a different story. Like the producers who like chose to pick that story. It was a choice of story. Like that's like, yes, that's not something we need in the world. You know, like.
Yeah,
it's not even about.
Yeah,
it wasn't even
necessarily
who is it coming from. That was just like not like the art. The whole plot point was
yeah, it's in the premise.
Dream.
But no, and then I mean it's the same thing with actors. Like we're now asking actors to have a more initiative and saying no to roles that are getting whitewashed. You know, like where Emma Stone gets cast as. What was that? Wasn't she cast as like an Asian American?
Yeah, it's Hawaiian.
Yeah, and
but then it's not even about race. It's about all lived experience. Like, should a non-deaf person play a deaf character? It's about lived experience. It's about like whether or not you were earned the right for honestly to not get bad publicity over everything. That's the real social consequence for these things. That's why they're making that decision. But beyond that, like who can write, who's the best person to write about a lived experience? I think that's less about publicity and more about, is it good or not?
Yeah.
And if you find a story that inspires you to write it, you know, and you back to what Adam was saying, and you find empathy in that character and that story, you should write it, in my opinion. Because if it sparks something in you, then it sparks something in you, and that's a great place to start.
So this is a great point from Martine. Doesn't this kind of contradict what we talked about in terms of having to employ radical empathy as a writer? Could a white writer write that story if doing enough research? So there are two elements here. One, there's the political aspect of like, you know, non-white writers getting jobs that should have gone to other people. Like, so that has nothing actually to do in the abstract of like a closed system of like, can this be a good story, well written? It's the political problem in Hollywood about like representation. So that's one thing. But in terms of like, can you, a human being, write a great thing with enough research? 100%. I mean, It depends on your ability to have empathy. The question we're talking about is more political and has really nothing to do with that aspect of it.
And the studio
industry wise, like like what Adam was saying, it's like it's not even necessarily just like publicity. It's like recognizing that there is an issue with hiring, and are you taking a job that should have gone to someone else?
Right. What I was saying about the publicity was that's the only reason studios are doing it.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
At the end of the day, like
yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, and so right now, by the way, if there's a story about Malcolm X, you know, you don't have to worry if you're a white writer, you're not going to get the phone call, so don't worry about it because you're not. Yeah. So
again, just follow up to Martine's second point, but then only war veterans can write movies about war, for example. So here's the fine line. If it's a group that has been oppressed in some systematically, that's the line. Like, I don't think veterans have had that issue accessing Hollywood and accessing writers' rooms. So I you know, that's what it comes down to for me.
Also, you know, and as I always do, I mean, on the practical side of this, that script that you write, or the first couple scripts that you write that you sell, they will, for better or for worse, pigeonhole you. So then the studio will come and say, wow, you wrote about this pregnant teenage girl, 16-year-old pregnant girl, and we've got a story about they're not going to say to her, can you write Sam Mendes's 1917 war movie? Diablo Cody did not get a phone call about that movie. You get pigeonholed. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because they say, oh, we've read this. We know this is your comfort zone. We know this is where you're really strong. We're going to offer you movies that are in this genre and arena.
What were you saying, Alexie?
I'm trying to remember. But basically, I think that, like, No, it's all good. I mean, I think that like I agree with your assessment that that's what it was. Like if you were going to write about a war veteran who has PTSD and you don't know about that, then it's just as like it's your responsibility to research PTSD and to represent that, disability counts as a disability correctly, and to speak with enough people. Like you're still obligated to talk to people. If you're going to write about a veteran experience specific to veterans, you still do need to do a ton of research. And you probably, and if it's digging so much into like literally like this is how veterans deal with like the VA and like all that kind of stuff, then you probably do want to talk to veterans, and you might even have like a veteran help you plan the story if it gets that much into the very, very specific experience. But I think your point about like when should you not take that on, or when should you be very cautious about taking that on, the line is relates to representation.
I think what you're touching on too is like there's nuance in like that research can't pick up on in some areas of like culture or otherwise, in particular among like oppressed groups of people. That's just like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's possible to do the amount of like research, or if research is sufficient to manage that nuance in some degree for some stories.
And that's, I think, where like you can still write. You could write with someone else too. Is another option.
Yeah, Monica's kind of touching that. She's writing a screenplay that actually is turning into a pilot. It's about African American. It's my go to sell and have the buyer high. So yeah, I mean, for instance, Spike Lee is always going to give the script for a next pass to a black writer. And the studios will too. I mean, 10 years ago, that was not, they were not, well, Adam made this point, they were not doing it. Now they're doing it for political reasons, that they can't go to a white guy every time.
Which is a good thing, objectively speaking. It makes the stories better. Like, that's my point of view.
Absolutely.
But just the reason, just to touch on this point for a second. So there's a question that they will ask you in every single pitch for a story. And this is kind of, everybody's asking this, which is, why you? Why do you have to be the one to tell this story? And you have to have a really good answer. And the best answer is a personal connection of like to the material. And whether that's like about like, you don't have to psychoanalyze in front of people, but you have to say like, I have a shared lived experience in some capacity. And I have a different opinion on this than some people, but I believe human beings are a lot more complicated and interesting than I think sometimes we sell that. We all have so much lived experience in us. And if you're writing something, you're putting your lived experience into that. You should be writing things that like you can personally connect with on a deep level. And in the pitch meeting, you have to show that. That's the best answer to the question. There are some things that are like too political for you to position yourself, but there's so many things you can.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that certainly will resonate in the meeting. If you know the world, if you've got an emotional connection to the world, to the character, that's music to the studio executives' ears, because they go, oh wow, this writer has a true connection. We're going to get that in the script.
I feel like the questions that you tend to get are like, in addition to the story, it's like, why you and why now?
Why you and now?
And and tying to that. And yeah, Martijn, I totally agree that this is a really difficult thing to navigate. It's just, it's a tricky conversation where people don't have all the answers because it's tough, but it's really important to just talk about it and think about it and think about your responsibility as a writer.
And the studios will somebody mentioned, maybe it's Martijn, consultants. Oh, Mike. Yeah. So by the way, one of the things they will do when they hire you to write a script about something, they'll have the studio frequently will have a connection or two and send you to meet those people. And then you'll sit with them, talk to them. Again, you'll be a journalist. and you'll extract story information, details like a hamburger phone from them. You have to be very aware and knowing what to take, what you can grab to give that's going to give authenticity to your story.
Yeah.
But I want to just emphasize that I think there's a lot of fear going along, especially if you're white. There's a lot of fear. If you have empathy and enough compassion with the choice of your material, you're choosing a story that you authentically connect with, you shouldn't be afraid. Just, have awareness. Be aware of what people would say. Don't put yourself in a situation that you can't answer. Why me? Why now?
Yeah.
In a way that gets people going, yeah, fuck yeah, you're awesome. I want you. If you can't position the story that way, it's going to be difficult.
And
Michelle's got a good point. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they had to, what'd she say?
Explain what a Black person might say because their writers were all white.
Yeah, that was back 100 years ago. I mean,
100 years ago.
Not that long ago, but yeah, that's of course. Yeah.
Not.
Andy Borowitz is the creator of that show.
Is that right? He is so funny.
He was a writer on that. That blew my mind when I found out about that.
He's truly a funny guy.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Juno.
Oh, sorry. No.
No, it's important. It's important. I think, I'm glad that we're having this conversation. It's an important thing to start the new year. The other thing that I will say is that, they do this a lot in novels, in publishing for books, having sensitivity readers. So if you write something, and a lot of times they'll have sensitivity readers for a bunch of different things read it. So it might be like mental health, it might be race, it might be gender, whatever it is. You might have different sensitivity readers go through it and share their opinions on it with you so that you can get the best version of it that you can. And that's always an option. And then if you are going to write about something that's outside of your experience, just being mindful to take notes. I know that's something that Avi has talked about before, that he wrote a short that dealt with something that he didn't have personal experience, and he ended up sharing it with a few friends and got some really, at first harsh, but then really helpful feedback that helped him shape it into something that ended up really resonating with people who shared that experience. It was cool because then it ended up meaning something to people. And that was,
Whenever I went out into the field to do research on an assignment on a movie that was in a world that was unfamiliar to me, I took a tape recorder.
Yeah.
Because you can borrow pieces or nuances of conversation that maybe you and I would never have, going back to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So you would, I was tape recording those people that I was talking to find out, to get those little pieces of conversation that were particular to them, and then use those.
Mm-hmm. Michelle brought up a point about notes, and that's just a note-taking technique, John, that you advocate for, is just being like, yep, absolutely, sounds great. Just being super, super receptive in the room. And
we're talking about notes with the studio?
Yeah, and I mean, in
Yeah.
general too, just like, if someone's giving you notes, it could be about their experience or whatever it is, just being really open to receiving the notes and then processing them and having your feelings about them later is always a good strat.
Well, if it's after release though, and it's anonymously, you also have to take into consideration that anything you say that seems defensive looks guilty, or like you're apologizing, right? So it's better to not acknowledge negativity. And if you do, just sort of be graceful and not whine in public. Like, don't have tweets being like, you're wrong. You're just gonna, that's just a black hole.
Yeah, I mean, one of the terrifying things about, studio executives and some and even producers is that they're not writers. So they haven't struggled with everything that we struggle with. And everybody loves to be creative. People love to be creative. So some studio executive, I got nothing against studios. Maybe I do have something against studio executives. Come to think about it. But
so you do.
Yeah. So I do have a problem because they'll go, shit, now I can be creative. Well, you're not creative, or you'd be doing what I do. So, and they say, here's the idea, here's the fix. It's really tricky because they don't have a fix, because they don't know how the story broke. They haven't done the work that we're doing in here. So they'll go, I got a great idea. She carries an umbrella. What the fuck does that have to do? So, I mean, you get those notes, and so yes, back to that point is to be, wow, that's really interesting. Let me see if I can use that. And then of course you don't use it. And then by the time you meet with them again, they've forgotten it because it wasn't a good idea anyway.
Most people are just kind of thoughtless and arbitrary, and casual observations tend to just be thoughtless and arbitrary or surface level.
Say, Adam, that people want to pee on it.
People want to pee on everything,
Yeah, no, they all want to. And by the way, the other thing, Adam's, that point about you don't want to alienate them. You want them to, like everybody, they want to be heard. So you don't want to cut them off. But what's that? Yes, disagree gracefully. Absolute, Thomas, perfect. Yes, does want to take criticism and disagree. That's what you do, or you don't even disagree. That's a really interesting idea.
Let me
see if I can work with it. Now, you're not going to deliver, excuse me, you're not going to deliver that next draft for about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. By that time, generally speaking, the executive will have forgotten about the note. And if you've fixed the issues that needed to be addressed, then you're solid anyway. But the one thing, and this is just a business aspect of the writing business, is again, if somebody, the studio executive, they don't want to be dismissed. Nobody does. They want to be heard, and they want to know that you're working with them. That's really key. They want to know that you're working with them. So it's one of the things that they don't teach in film school, is how to take notes, how to sit in a meeting and take notes and be responsive and receptive, even when you know the note is bad, because what you're creating, by the way, this is again where I get way too deep into the weeds with the business part of it. That executive that you're working with, you've got a movie that you're writing for Universal, that executive in 1.5 years will be at Warner Brothers. And when somebody says, hey, do you know who somebody, we get this idea, we bought the rights to this thing, yeah, call John Warren. He's great to work with. Or John Warren, don't call him. He's argumentative, he's difficult. That's...
Yeah.
I have a friend who, she's one of the most talented writers I know, like incredible writer, really talented. No, not you. No, you're great. But like the second part of what I'm saying is she's so difficult to communicate with.
Not me.
Not you. No, actually, Alexie, you're pretty good at like that's a bad idea, but I'm not going to say anything. But this person I know will never succeed in Hollywood because of that.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a dark night of the soul and fundamentally change how you communicate, because you're never like, but it's, for me, it's sort of like, wow, so talented, but you've got to be a communicator. You've got to be known as somebody who's easy to work with, who makes people feel, takes ideas with grace. That's really important. Just I think in anything in life.
Yeah. By the way, any business you go into, and one of the things that I want to back up a little bit on my thumping of studio executives. Sometimes that thing, that place in the script where they're finding an issue and they've got a fix, generally speaking, they don't have the fix. But frequently they're pointing to a problem. Mm-hmm. So you might go, oh, so it's the second act break that's where you're having an issue. What the suggestion you're making doesn't work at all. I'm not going to say that, but I need to go back and relook at this aspect because there is a problem there.
Yeah. And then I will say that, so a lot of times, sometimes you will get great notes, and that's great.
Oh.
But if you truly, truly disagree with a note, well, okay, so it's always okay to ask for clarification about notes, which might be the place to start if you think you disagree, just on a practical level. Like if you really say like, okay, like if they say make the car green, you can ask about like why. You can try to like not going at it argumentatively, but like from a perspective of trying to understand what they're doing. So you can find that thing that John's saying, like where they're pointing to a problem. And then normally I've found that if you really disagree with a note, you can say like I'm going to look into that in the meeting. And then later you can come back with more, I guess it depends on your relationship with them. If you can come back later and talk to them about a fix. That's what I've done when I've been working with another. But then again, that's like that was a more collaborative relationship. Is coming back and saying, here's what I'm thinking of doing to address this. Sometimes you can just do it and not explain that, but.
Yes, you can, because there's a time lapse between the time you get the note and you deliver the next draft. And if you fixed it, if they call you out on it, say, I couldn't get that to work, but your note really helped me, and this is what I came up with. Do you think it works? It's a collaboration. The movie business is a collaboration.
Framing it from the point of view, John. Framing it from that point of view, being like, I wouldn't have arrived at the right answer without you.
Yes, right.
Like making that implication, and that will get people to shut up mostly because they feel good about themselves. Like, oh wow, I contributed.
Yeah, Alexie, can you pull up this? Does 2 out of 3 rule hold? What is that?
2 out of 3.
Yeah. To work in business, you need 2 out of 3. You're either super talented, well liked, or a hard worker. They say you need 2 out of 3 to succeed. I think I don't know, because I think that there's a fourth in film, which is the most important of all, and it's well connected. Sadly, like
it's tied to well liked though. That's tied to well liked.
Yeah, I get. But by the way, the super. Can I just comment for a quick second about the super talented? I've known a lot of writers who thought they fell into that category, and there were a lot of other people who didn't think they fell into that category. So they thought, I can be argumentative and I can be difficult because I'm so damn talented. And turns out the executives didn't think they were so damn talented and were eager to let them go. I was so jealous of Chris Giralmo. I'll mention names, but Chris Giralmo. Chris Giralmo, I think, won an Oscar. He was nominated for Mississippi Burning. And I probably told this story before, but we had the same agent. And Alexie, have I told this story?
No.
No. So Chris Giralmo is a really good writer. A really good writer. I like him a lot. He's a good guy, but he's very difficult. Anyway, I was walking to a meeting at Disney, and here comes Chris walking the other way. I go, hey, Chris, how you doing? And he goes, good. He said, those assholes kept me waiting. And I walked out on him. I said, what? He goes, yeah. He said, they kept me waiting, so I left. Fuck them. So I thought, wow, man. So I'm walking to the meeting. I'm going into my meeting. I'm thinking, man, I wish I were Chris Giralmo. I wish I was that ballsy that I could, you make me wait? I'm out of here. And so I take my meeting, whatever, and I get home that afternoon. I call my agent, and we're talking, and he said, yeah, I heard the meeting went well. I said, hey, by the way, I ran into Giralmo coming when I was going in. And he goes, I'm going to kill that guy. I said, what? He goes, he walked out on a meeting because they were late. He said they had production problems. They weren't being offensive. And he said, and guess what? They don't want to work with him anymore. I said, are you serious? He goes, yeah, he just burned Warner Brothers. And by the way, that's not the first studio. He said he's going through them like wildfire. He said, I'm so done with it. God, I shouldn't have mentioned his name. Anyway, too late.
It doesn't matter, John.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I hung up and I thought, wow, wow, lesson learned. I mean, because Jerome was flying high, but he was burning studios because you make me wait, I walk out. I won't even take the meeting if you make me wait. Well, that's a nice attitude to have if you're Aaron Sorkin. If you're that shy of being
Aaron Sorkin, I just got a feeling that like he's gotten so much success because he's easy to work with.
By the way, he's so damn smart. He's not gonna. Yeah, he's not pulling.
Yeah, he's not an idiot. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, at the point, I think it was a really a great lesson for me because I kind of admired the bravado of Geromo, and then I quickly put that in a pillow and suffocated it. If you forgive the metaphor, but.
Oh,
Jesus
man.
Christ, John, that's pretty violent.
Yeah, man, it was.
This ties into that in January we were hoping to do a pitch week.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to try to get notes live and hopefully not walk out on us if we're a little late and practice all these things, then you should apply to be on pitch week.
Hey.
We don't know the exact date yet. Or anything. So if you want to submit, we'll be flexible about, we'll just be in touch and we'll figure out a time that works for everybody and we'll figure all that out. But if you want to be considered, you should go ahead and apply. And I'm posting the link in the chat. It pitches for features only right now. So nothing else. So typically for these pitches, you're pitching the story from beginning to end. And so you want to know your tentpole beats is the main thing. You want to know your tentpole beats, and you want to have a little bit more like fun stuff on top of the tentpole beats. It's basically like you're breaking your own movie is the vibe a lot of times. You can also go back and watch some of our other pitch weeks because everyone who's gone so far has done an amazing job.
We had some really good pitches before, but please, you have a protagonist. I know this sounds, everybody's going to go, oh my God, is he really going to say this? I'm going to say this because somebody's not going to do it. Have a protagonist with a clear, tangible objective.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, I know everybody's going, oh yeah. But Adam, come on. People, you say that 1,000 times and they go, oh yeah, the objective, I haven't really thought about it.
John, I thought that I was going to solve that problem when I came up with the motivation versus objective thing, just to force people to clarify that. And I don't think it's helping, but
it is.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, the people we interface with the most are getting it.
Yeah,
because they're talking about it all the time. But like, it's. I don't know why so many people struggle with that.
It's tough.
I've been teaching for a long time, and it is the thing. It is the most difficult thing.
Do you know why? Here's my theory.
Wait,
I have a lot of theories. This is my new
theory.
The reason why people struggle to find a tangible objective for Act 2 is because that forces you to actually have a plot and know what the plot ideas are. And that's like kind of like that means you actually have to have ideas about like obstacles and you have to know what the story is like in its tangible way. Like if it's a heist, it's the money in the safe. If it's a road trip movie, it's the destination. Like the objective defines what the genre is in a lot of cases, and that's hard for people when they're like they have a notion and they don't know how to turn it into an actual like plot.
Martin has a story with 26 protagonists. I love those that have 26. I love those. Yeah.
John says, "Wow."
Before you pitch though, let me get a pillow so I can take a nap. No,
yeah, actually, do you want to know something? Avi and I were talking a lot about Star Wars over the weekend or the week because I just
you guys have exciting lives. You know that?
We do, and we really excited. But like he brought up like. The Star Wars, the one that came out in the 90s, Phantom Menace, is a terrible movie. Like, it's really bad. And he brought up why, and it was like, oh my God, there's no protagonist. It's a bunch of characters. Like, there's no protagonist in the Phantom Menace. Like, there actually is no character who changes. There's a bunch of characters, and it doesn't work. At the end, you're kind of like, oh God, thank God that's over,
Yeah.
But like, that's what it is. There's no anyway.
Yes, merging Act 1 and Act 3 is always a great idea. Yeah, John Matthias is his own protagonist and mentor. You understand me? Yeah, I'm sure I understand you. Perhaps no one else does. So I hope you feel my empathy.
Yeah, John is my false mentor.
And you're my anti-hero.
Hey, there we go.
Aww,
There we go.
that's so
I'm
cute.
glad that I'm the hero in your story.
Yeah.
What's-
So yeah, honestly though, it's like
John, hey John, take a nap or smother me? I can't answer that question right now.
Yeah. So if obviously we want to be able to give notes to your story. So if you still have room to improve it, then that's perfect. It does not need to be a perfect script, but just doing what you can to make sure that the objective is tangible and specific and unattainable, and making sure you have one protagonist locked in will give us other stuff to focus on.
Just to build off of that, Alexie, the most important things for you to figure out are the protagonist, their normal world, their flaw, the inciting incident, the Act 1 break where they go after their objective, the midpoint, the Act 2 break where they either get their objective or they don't objective and they're forced to learn how to change, their all is lost moment where they are forced to change, and then moving forward, their resolution to the final fight. That's all you got to figure out.
Yeah, just that.
So easy.
And by the way, when you get out in the real world,
and then you're good.
when you get out in the real world, all kidding aside, when you get out in the real world and you walk into that pitch meeting, if you don't have those nailed down, you'll die in that meeting. I mean, and I've done that, and then you don't want to be there, man. That's a painful, painful place to be sitting in a meeting and you think, shit, I wish I'd thought this through a little further, because I don't have all of these elements of story. By the way, the antithetical of is that you go into a meeting and you've got it, and you've got the story locked, and then the beauty of that is you sit down and you start pitching, and they feel your confidence because they know you own that story, and that goes like a long ways towards selling the pitch, because they go, wow, this guy or this woman, whoever's pitching, they really know the story. But you can't let them see you sweat in a pitch meeting. You can't let them see that your story has holes, because man, they want to get you out of the room if that's the case.
So
speaking of the mentor.
Who was
Alexie's
Juno.
got
I think it was the dad. I think the dad was the mentor.
He does that great beat,
Yeah,
Tell
I
me,
think
can
You got to find somebody who sees the sun shining out of your ass, right? That's the line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love the parents.
The parents are great in this. They're both great, and they're both like not. I don't know. They're very interesting, and I mean that's probably how they got. What's their name? J.K. Simmons and what's her name?
Allison Nanny.
Yes, freaking love her.
Hasn't she won like more Emmys than anyone?
I hope so.
I think that's true. I'm gonna double check.
I also think that what's his name is great. Mark, what's his name?
Jason Bateman, yeah.
He's good. You can't see him work. You cannot see him, huh? What?
They got a great cast.
They got a great cast.
Really good. The one thing I like about Jason Bateman is he's kind of like flat and neutral. Like he's one of those actors who like very much like plays off of whoever is around him, and that's kind of what makes him such a scary bad guy.
What, that he like doesn't have his own personality?
No, he plays off the energy around him. Like he's very like, I don't know. He's very like you forget he seems innocuous. I don't know. He doesn't have much of a personality, I guess. He was in Teen Wolf 2.
Wow.
I think I kind of.
That's where I recognize him from.
By the way, Ozarks is fantastic. If you haven't seen Ozarks,
we really good to talk about Juno, but okay.
Wait, let's talk about Juno for the last 9 minutes. Last 9 minutes.
Tomorrow we're going for what's it?
Espresso.
The Copy Class Espresso edition. If you're in the writer's room, tomorrow we're going to break 3 scenes from Juno. And that's going to be super fun because...
Which scenes?
I want to do... So, fun fact, was it high school or middle? It was middle school. Me and one of my friends had memorized that phone call where Juno tells Leah that she's pregnant. And anytime we saw each other, that was like our secret handshake. We
Yo,
we do the whole thing.
You're such a nerd. God. God almighty. You gotta be kidding me.
John, you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who you're talking to. Alexie's like a real nerd.
I know, but the depths of her nerdism are deeper than I can even than I knew.
Look,
so you had
it had to be another person. It wasn't me saying it to myself. I was not alone.
So are you going to break that scene down?
I should do. Yeah, I could do it. I could do it without looking at the freaking script. That's what the beauty of it is.
Beauty is the operative word there, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
I this comment. It's weird to see Michael Cera and Jason Bateman in the same movie. Oh my god, I didn't make that connection.
Oh,
wait,
yeah.
Why?
Because they were in Arrested Development.
They play father son in Arrested
I
Development.
didn't make that connection either. That's so right. Yeah.
Because Michael Cera plays George Michael.
Who was the antagonist?
Who was the antagonist? That's a good question.
I had Juno as her own because she was the one who was judging everything. It's either her or Jason Bateman.
I think it's Jason Bateman. Because he's the one who fucks up her objective.
Yeah, that's right. Because he
stops her objective.
In the final fight, right? So that was my thing.
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of because of the scenario. It worked without it. But he is a source of conflict.
Is it the baby? The baby.
The baby. No.
Wow.
He said it about 4 different ways.
The baby's a source of conflict.
Yeah, the baby was pretty. I mean, up until once she decided to keep the baby posed no problems. It was like
that was what is I find interesting about this movie is I think I am so drawn also to the parents. I said this to you before, but it's it so easily could have been a movie, and it was very definitively not that a 16-year-old goes to her parents and says I'm pregnant, and the parents flip out, but instead they're just well, fuck Juno, this is.
Yeah, I was gonna.
It kind of carries over with the pregnancy too, right? Because it's she decides that she's gonna keep it, and then it's a non-issue the rest of the movie.
It's such an amazing choice that they make. Yeah, I'm glad that came up because, yes, it's the normal thing you would think. I don't know, but you would think the normal thing, and also it creates more and more conflict if they throw her out of the house. And
but it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but the fact is, they actually offer the parents. They offer no conflict, and I've always the 2 or 3 times I've seen the film, it still strikes me as what an interesting choice. They still know there's going to be enough conflict there, but the fact that they go, "Wow, Juno, I thought you knew when to say when." That's as angry as the father gets.
Yeah,
right?
and the stepmom offers options. The stepmom's have you considered this and that? And it's a very healthy relationship overall.
Yeah, that's true. And then
but the story isn't about her.
Didn't know he had to do them.
Because the story isn't about her relationship with her parents. That's why that choice. It's not that story.
Yeah.
Actually, it's one of the reasons Queen's Gambit is so good is that there's so many opportunities for melodrama that they sidestep to go someplace more interesting. Minor spoilers for Queen's Gambit. They set up this stepmom character who adopts her, and she's got an alcohol problem, and they're so setting up for them to have a horrible relationship. She just doesn't understand chess. And then they go in a completely different direction with their relationship, and they focus on cool chess stuff. And by focusing on her success rather than failure, the story went in a way that I wouldn't have expected.
Right. But Adam, in order to get to that choice, you have to look at the other choices.
Oh, yeah.
First, and that's what in both of those Juno and Queen's Gambit. I love these films for exactly those reasons, because the obvious choice, the instinctual choice is to go there, and in both instances they don't, but it's because the writer's sophisticated enough to know, okay, let's look at this, let's think about it, but we're not going to make that choice.
What were you going to say, Alexie?
Huh?
You were about to say something.
Oh, we saw Monica say, "I love the stepmom," and we said, "Yes."
My favorite character by far.
Yeah, she was great. She was so good.
The best scene is the one in. I think you mentioned it in the breakdown. The one in the when she's getting ultrasound, and she's
Yeah.
like, my 6-year-old daughter could do this, and she's not the brightest bulb in the tanning
I
bed.
love that line.
My
Liberty
favorite.
Bell. Liberty Bell.
Yeah, Liberty Bell.
It's a great
That's
line.
great. Yeah, and I guess that's a good note to take from this too, is to think about, what is the conflict because, John, when we talk about obstacles, it's like he could break his ankle, he could do all these things. And it's about thinking, what is the story you're going to tell? Like, you could do all these obstacles, but what's the story you're going to tell? She could break her ankle, but is that the direction you want to go? And so it's about adding conflict everywhere, and about thinking that every single one of those obstacles that you choose define the shape and tone of the movie. So it's choosing which ones you want. Because, it would be a lot more conflict if the parents threw her out. But is that the tone? And that would completely change the tone of the film.
I wonder, what is the log line of this movie? Because does it mention pregnancy? Because that's also funny what you were mentioning, when your friend told you you're going to go see it. It's about a pregnant 16-year-old. It's actually not about that at all.
I know. It's that was the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think
it is, but it isn't.
The log line is it's odd because it also specifies Minnesota. It's a 16-year-old quirky girl or headstrong girl from Minnesota gets pregnant, and that's it. It's
that's a marketing log line, not necessarily what was used to sell the film. I would have her objective in there and the stakes. When a young, headstrong Minnesota girl gets pregnant, she has to choose the perfect family for her baby before the baby's born, right? It would be something like that.
Yeah. But even
log lines I'm becoming more and more of an advocate. I haven't been in the past, but the importance of log lines. Again, maybe a podcast. We should talk about that more, because the log line forces you to know your story in 25 words.
Yeah.
And to go back to what we were talking about earlier about, do you have a protagonist with an objective? Oh, I think I do. Maybe I do. Oh, shit, I don't. But if you can't write a log line, or a log line demands that you know the story. And that's
when I'm generating story ideas, the first thing I do now, after this year of young screenwriters and helping people figure the log line out, I've actually come to the place where I want to write a log line to know if the story works.
Yeah, because you can tell.
Yeah, you can tell immediately if it's a movie.
You can tell if it's going to have the stakes, if it's going to have the objective. Here's something. Here's a random question of the D. Jason says, who are some of your favorite screenwriters? It seems like we ask a lot about favorite movies quite a bit, but not favorite screenwriters.
Well, I'm a big fan of Steve Zaillian. Zaillian's a great writer. Zaillian's kind of one of my favorite. Paul Antanasio is a great writer. He's gone more TV over the last few years. Sorkin's great, of course. Sorkin. Walter Hill back in the day. I love Walter Hill. Babaloo Mandel and Lowell Gans. You guys, God, wonder where those guys are. Babaloo Mandel and Lowell Gans were, back in the day, they were the go-to guys for comedy, for big comedy. They wrote Splash. They wrote a ton of stuff. City Slickers. But again, if you can, look at Zaillian's stuff. Zaillian's great, and Paul Antanasio. I'll give it some thought. But those are the couple. Those are a few that come to mind right away.
Yeah, Adam, what about you?
All my favorite screenwriters are also directors, so I don't know if I can answer that question. Yeah. I think Rian Johnson is great. He's great because he understands how to deconstruct genre.
Yeah. And
perfect segue into next coffee class.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5:30, right?
Yeah. Perfect. We're gonna do Knives Out. I will break down Knives Out. An interesting note about this screenplay: he wrote this in a month, and it was fast tracked into production. 6 months later, the movie was finished shooting. And you can tell with the script. Normally Rian Johnson is an incredibly detail-oriented, wonderful screenwriter. This script is kind of rushed. It's got it's great and it works. Like all the structure stuff is there, but like he's got like some phrasing that I would change. And like there's a lot of like, yeah, he wrote this in a month, and it was greenlit. But the story's fantastic and the movie is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen Looper, John?
Yeah, love Looper.
That screenplay is amazing.
Yeah, and that's a very ambitious story. It's a very ambitious story.
It's good though. It's good.
Yeah.
Alexie, you didn't like Knives Out the first time you watched it, so it'll be interesting to hear you rewatch it.
I was like,
You thought it was overrated.
I mean, I thought it was good, but I also was never like an Agatha Christie person,
Gotcha.
so it didn't have that special appeal to me. It's like I enjoyed watching it, and it was great, but it wasn't necessarily something I would say like I need to go see that again. You know, obstacles, right?
Also, so much of that film is referential to murder mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you've never seen an Agatha Christie murder mystery, like you wouldn't get that certain things are like being subverted intentionally. Like the big magic trick of this movie is that it presents itself with all the elements of a whodunit and then convinces you that it's actually not a whodunit and that it's a Hitchcock suspense thriller. But it's not. It's a magic trick. They say the vast majority of whodunits don't have any suspense. It's all about the big surprise at the end.
Interesting.
And this film lays into the suspense because the whole suspense is about you have information.
It's also got a great reversal.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
But just the whole thing about suspense is that whodunits are about withholding information, trying to piece it together, and suspense films are about giving you information and then dragging out tension with information that the characters don't know, but you know there's the audience. And this film has it both ways, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Great. Okay, so that's next week.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
No. Thank you, Maggie, for letting me be.
Thank you,
for letting me
Maggie.
Lovely
sit
meeting
in.
you.
I'm available
Thank
to be
you,
the
Alexie.
person.
Great job. Great job.
All right. Adios, everybody.
Take care, everybody.